Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and today I'm looking at a book from Oxford University Press. It's one of their Handbook series, and it's a particularly interesting book which I found fascinating to look at. It's called the Oxford Handbook on Intellectual Property Law, been edited by Rochelle C. Dreyfuss and Justine Pila. And as I say, it comes to us from OUP. Elizabeth did the first draft of the review, and we've given it the title, Global Issues, Global Answers on Intellectual Property from the Oxford University Press. Let's have a look at the book. It's very much part of the stable of the Oxford Handbook series. There it is. It's a heavy book. It's a hardback. There's the spine, which you can see there. And then on the back, there's just some general blurb. On the inside cover, there's a bit of information about the authors, and then on the back cover, there's again various information about the handbook series itself. And of course, on the back, we've also got a detailed index by page numbering, and it's quite a substantial index, which you can see there. You can also see on the last page that there's quite a lot of footnoting all the way through, a lot of detail, quite a lot again of paragraph numbering and numbering for subheads and so forth. And if we go to the front of the book, it's a heavy book. It runs to something approaching just under 1,000 pages, around about 1,000 pages, something like that. And we've then got that book there. There we go, that's the front page. And I'm just going to fold that over. And we can see after that, you can see the main preface, again, which is quite detailed. Then there's the table of contents, very detailed table again, running all the way through in various parts. There are a total of 34 chapters and 5 parts to go with it. Each of the chapters has got the name of the person. This is the list of the contributors, large number of people involved in this. But of course they are actually linked into the chapter headings, and you can see the second page of the contents section. And part 1 is the introduction. And then we've got the main chapter heading there. And then you can see it runs through. You've got the names of the people right at the beginning, and then you run into the main body copy, if you like, of the text. And you can see how it runs all the way through. So what do we say about this book? It's a heavy book, and it's an important area, of course, of law today in the year 2018, because IP law is very important, both commercially and in terms of litigation. Of course, there's some very interesting cases that crop up, which are referred to, going back from the days when it was really considered part of contract and tort law, but it now has its own particular area. So what we say is this: the importance of intellectual property to the global economy, as well as to individual nations, is incalculable, unless you want to do the complicated maths, and that would involve you in very large numbers. And it's easier to say then that the importance of IP as an area of law cannot be underestimated, and if proof were needed, it can be found here, more or less in the new handbook published recently by OUP. It's a hefty but handy volume, as you've probably seen by the way I've been handling and juggling it, and it's a compendium of 34 learned essays and articles from more than as many international contributors from a range of jurisdictions worldwide, and that's what gives it its international appeal. And each of these individuals offers expert commentary on specific aspects of IP under the editorship of Rochelle Dreyfuss and Justine Pila, who hail respectively from New York University and the University of Oxford. And speaking of the monetary value of IP, which of course is fundamental to many people, the editors offer up some interesting statistics from the UK Intellectual Property Office. For example, in 2011, quote, UK business invested 126.8 billion in knowledge assets compared with 88 billion in tangible assets, and approximately 50% of all of this was protected by intellectual property rights. And of course additional figures follow which relate to the UK alone, but you get the general idea. Now, as emphasised by the editors, IP laws seek to stimulate economic growth and encourage freedom of expression, culture and democracy. Well, absolutely. And one is tempted to add that said laws are also out there to protect the hard work of creative individuals from unscrupulous copyists out to profit from stealing other people's ideas. And of course that's always been a very great area of concern. The publication of this handbook is thus a welcome event, offering as it does an historic as well as global perspective on intellectual property, which does much to reveal its scope and significance, as well as the ways in which it can vary under different legal systems. Again, the international point coming forward. Take just one example, for instance, the article by Mikli Fixor entitled Intellectual Property Law in Central and Eastern Europe. Through the lens of recent history, this essay compares more or less the concept of intellectual property in the so-called capitalist countries with the ways and means that creative endeavour was protected in Eastern Europe during the Soviet period. And there's a direct quotation here from Karl Marx's Manifesto of the Communist Party, which says it all, quote, "The theory of communism," says Marx, "may be summed up in this single sentence: abolition of private property." It's worth bearing that in mind, I think. And even, of course, after the breakup of the Soviet Union, there apparently remained a reluctance, mainly on the part of professors and researchers, to use the word property, preferring instead to refer to intellectual property law as the law of intellectual creations. Playing around with words, I think, possibly here. And as a former Assistant Director General of WIPO, Mikli Fixor explains that they didn't want to recognise that their arguments had become outdated. Interestingly, the book also contains articles covering the emergence and development of IP in other areas, from Western Europe, the US, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, to Asia, Africa, South America and more. Plus, of course, there is so much more besides that one can add, including treatises on intellectual property and the internet, and on climate change. But let me conclude by saying this. It must be said that the editors of this handbook have achieved their stated aim, consistent with the other volumes in the Oxford Handbook series, of which there are quite a large number now, namely to provide a detailed entree to the field. And this remarkable, wide-ranging survey will certainly be of interest, not merely to practitioners and academics, but to a much wider readership in industry and government worldwide. And the publication date is cited at the 19th of June 2018. Let me just show the book again very quickly. As I said, it's a heavy book. There we go, there's the front, and then you've got the spine, and then you've got the back. And just opening it in the middle, we come to trademarks and allied rights. You can see the structure there. You can see how the book is actually created. There's the main body copy, and of course you've got quite detailed footnotes all the way through. Very much a hallmark of the OUP structure. But I do think it's a very useful and a very important book. I'm very grateful that OUP are continuing to produce these handbooks, because they are of great interest, I think, not just to academics but also to practitioners as well. So a big thank you to all the contributors and the editors for the work that you've done. Thank you. Bye-bye.